So I'm here with Chris Sky, and just to further Andrew's question about the media, it's essentially looking like there's nepotism, whether it's Freemasons, the Zionist, Israelis controlling the media, or Alex Jones says now China controls the media. What is a solution that we could do to maybe start our own media corporations and to get some more highlights like you are on the, like you could essentially start your own media company, couldn't you?
It's funny you say that because I just got actually involved with someone last week who's a member on my website, realchrisSky.com, and he has his own social media platform he created. It's literally exactly like Facebook with a different color scheme. It has the live streaming for each individual user, post videos, post whatever you want. He has a cloud server set up. He just got the app ready for Android and Apple. So I'm working with him now to integrate this new social media platform into my website, realchrisSky.com. So the tens of thousands of members who are on there already can now create their own social media platform, very similar to Facebook. And the only difference is instead of Mark Zuckerberg at the helm, you'll have someone like me who won't censor them and who won't try to silence messages that the mainstream media doesn't want. And I believe that this is going to be a bastion of free speech, not just for Canada and the U.S., but for worldwide. And I believe it has the ability to really spread a message of truth.
Nice. So then instead of, for instance, you running personally for Prime Minister, do you think with that network you're talking about that we could set up direct democracy so that people like me, you, Andrew actually has a similar social media network, we all start contributing to start a big network like what you've got going on, but it actually incorporates direct democracy and registered voting, so you take your government ID, you sign up, there's no fake accounts, and your vote, instead of going to GoFundMe or Change.org or all these controlled sites, we actually now are petitioning the government not only to make changes in policies, but to actually run as a political party and have control for the people. And it would be direct democracy. And on top of that, we could also incorporate our own cryptocurrency. So just like Facebook Marketplace, bartering and exchanging, we wouldn't have to use the fractional reserve debt notes. We could actually have our own cryptocurrency based on the gross domestic product, the goods and services of all of us good people, without getting these interest rates and getting fleeced by the international bankers.
Well, I can't even disagree with anything you said. The cryptocurrency and the decentralized internet and the marketplace is a great idea. Anything that can move us away from the dependency of private international banks to fund our economy and fund our country at massive interest rates, especially when our government is addicted to deficits. That just destroys our purchasing power. It makes our country weaker. It makes our people less free and more poor every single year. So we do need to come up with something. And I like the idea of the direct democracy. It's very similar to what they have in Switzerland, where if the government tries to implement a policy and it's unpopular or popular, the people can voice their opinion and in a national petition. And these petitions actually have weight with the government, and they actually have to abide by the will of the people. And I think that would be a very powerful tool with a country like Canada, because Canadians can be educated and Canadians can be made aware, and then Canadians will stand up for their best interests if they believe that their voice can be heard. And that's the kind of government we need. We need a government that not only gives power to the people, it gives a voice to the people, and it respects the people's best interests. And it understands that the only way to run a country is to focus all our energy, money, resources, and time on running the country, not running the people who live in the country.
Great answer. So furthering that is, if we started the media, the direct democracy, our own cryptocurrency, now imagine starting our own society. Instead of it being a secret society like the Freemasons or the Rosicrucians or all these people, we start our own society. And one thing I really like about that is, let's say me and you make a deal, but I fuck you over, I screw you over. That's now between me and you. But if we had a larger society, all these people are involved, now there's accountability not only personally, but within a society. So then the rest of the people would essentially say, Steve's now blackballed, he screwed over Chris Sky. And you guys could all agree about that. So now when it comes to the hesitancy about doing larger farm purchases and having communal farms, instead of worrying about that one jackass or the few rotten eggs that are essentially ruining it for everyone, we now have a network set up, so if the guy messes up on our farm, there's actually a society so that if he tries to go to the next farm and pull the same crap, he would now be flagged or blackballed by our society. What do you think about that, Chris?
We should be doing a similar thing with the federal government. Our government should be run like a corporation, and anybody who's part of a corporation that doesn't perform should be fired. They shouldn't be given a second chance. They shouldn't be allowed to run up a massive debt and deficit and then just say, oh, we'll fix it next year. If we applied that to the government and we applied that to our community projects, we'd be much more efficient and much more successful. And everything you just described could be applied Canada-wide. It doesn't have to be a few small places here and there. It could be exactly how we ran this entire country, and that would be a huge benefit for the people. We could have a massive increase in our standard of living, a massive decrease in our cost of living, and a huge increase in our international independence and self-reliance. And that combined would make Canada literally the best country in the world.
Okay, that's great. So then when you now have like thousands, you're going to Edmonton, you'll probably have like, what is it, like 3, 4, 5, how many thousands are showing up?
Probably something like that, yeah.
If we now spread this idea about our own direct democracy, social media, media networks, so that yourself could have an even bigger voice, because now more people are signed into the society and the network. Would you promote these ideas, for instance, when you go to Edmonton, and maybe we could get the ball rolling? Or even, what is the name of your friend that started this network, or the name of the social media network?
I don't know if he wants to be named. He's just a man that's very talented, and he spent a lot of his own personal time doing it. So if he wants to be named, when we actually get everything on paper and get it settled, I'll definitely name him. He probably is going to want to be known, and he's going to be known as a revolutionary that helped bring free speech to the people. And that's going to be integral for the preservation of the country that we know and love, because they're attacking free speech right now with Bill C-36. They tried with Bill C-10. It's going to come back around, and they're not going to stop there. They're going to keep going. Look what they did to me to silence me. They eliminated my social media. They took down my website. So that's why we have to fight back. That's why we need to create these actual safe spaces on the internet. And I'm not using that word as a social justice or politically correct word. In my opinion, a safe space is where you can say whatever you want without worrying about being censored, ostracized, banned, attacked, arrested, etc. That's the kind of country I want to live in, and I think that's the kind of country Canadians want to live in.
Yeah, no, that sounds fantastic. And I mean, I seen an article written about you, antihate.com, and they're slandering you as anti-Semitic when you're calling out the bankers. And I mean, I did see that there was a correlation you made with Hitler kind of being bang on with what he said in Mein Kampf.
No, the only thing I said, I was quoting what Hitler said about how he said in the future all of our countries would be indebted to the international bankers. And sure enough, fast forward to now, and every country is in debt to the international banker except for Cuba, North Korea, and Iran. So that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, for sure. Not. I don't think you're anti-Semitic. I just think that the way that these anti-hate, or all of these groups that are trying to label anybody questioning the bankers, anybody questioning mass immigration, you're now either anti-Semitic or anti-Islamophobic. If you question the nepotism amongst the media of secret transgenders all over TV and media, you're now transphobic. Like, I've got transgender friends. Give a shout out to Kata Gaia, who's one of the leaders in the it's the legal name fraud she calls out. But the main thing is just because guys like me and Chris are questioning bankers, mass immigration, it doesn't mean that we're against any one group, tribe, religion.
Definitely not. It just means we're looking out for the best interests of our country and everybody in it, regardless of their race or religion. My entire campaign is about restoring our rights and freedoms. And rights and freedoms are universal to every single Canadian, regardless of your age, gender, ethnicity, religion, etc., etc., etc. All the things that you just talked about, anti-this, anti-that, label this, label that, that's what they use when they don't have a real argument. They can't deny what we're saying is true. They can't argue what we're saying because it's true. So what do? They just call you a bad name and hope people don't listen to you. And it's getting pretty old, and I think people have finally realized that it's a red herring and it means nothing.
Yeah, I'm curious. There's a lot of information on the internet about Zionist Jews, Jesuits, Freemasons, the Soviet propaganda out of Russia. What's your take on that? Do you think that there is one party control or one society or race, religion controlling things? The Catholics are obviously getting called out pretty good now with the residential schools and the hoarding of wealth. Who do you think takes the blame? And if we call out every one of those groups as essentially being corrupt, what is a way that we can now take some of the power that they've hoarded away from them? Do you think starting our own banks in our own societies is a fair start?
Well, what you're saying is you're talking about corruption on all different types of religion and pseudo-religions, and I believe that corruption in religion and politics is synonymous, and that's why I don't really trust either of those organizations. There are certain people, obviously, within politics who are trustworthy, just like there are certain people within certain religions who are incredible people and incredibly trustworthy. But as institutions, they are all inherently corrupt, and this corruption goes back centuries. And yes, one of the best things we can do as Canadians or free citizens of any country is to try to limit our dependency on these private bankers and to try to get the issue of our currency back and to limit our interest and to limit our waste.
Okay, and would you be supportive of starting, let's say that's the freedom rallies, but now instead of spending so much time rallying, and it's almost like an echo chamber of like you speaking to the people that kind of already know the lockdowns are fraud, the vaccines are dangerous, there's chemtrails being sprayed, there's all these agendas that it almost seems like we're in an echo chamber at these freedom rallies. Would you support, let's say, an official society similar to the way Freemasons have their secret society? It's registered. Now we can have our own clubhouses and meet up and now plan on buying farms and having communal farms. Would you support a society like that?
I would support community involvement on a grand scale between all the community members, projects that will benefit the community. I don't think we need pseudo-religious or pseudo-organizations to do that because, like all the other organizations, they're open to corruption. I think the best cooperation would be between private, free individuals with shared goals. And if we start on small scales like that, we can make huge things happen.
Thank you, Chris, guys.
My pleasure.
Yeah. No, I really do kind of see that with the farmland being bought up, the prices, the inflation's going through the roof, the sooner we can actually buy some property and start cooperating on farmlands, having our own businesses. And it's essentially, if now people within the truth movement that want freedom are starting their own businesses or taking already successful business models and now promoting those instead of now going and buying from Nestle and Kraft and all of the Coca-Cola, whatever garbage products, we're now supporting organic, wholesome food at family-run businesses or cooperations amongst the truthers. Do you think that there is... would you promote that of the truthers or these people at the Freedom Rally starting their own?
I promote that wholeheartedly because number one way we're getting screwed over is because so many of us, and I'm talking billions of people around the world, families are spending thousands of dollars a month on all these products that everybody has basically been brainwashed to buy every week for the rest of their lives. Toilet paper, toothpaste, things that you need, obviously. But where is this money going to? It's going to Procter & Gamble. It's going to Johnson & Johnson. And then these companies are turning around and using the money that we give them to fund NGOs to make us less free, to fund programs that make us less free, to advertise on news networks to make us take their pharmaceutical products, etc. So yes, the more community members we get that can buy local, the more community buying organizations we have that can generate local sales and local trade, and the less money we have going to these giant corporations each year, the better. Every dollar we give to these corporations is a dollar they use against us.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I was just wanted to touch back on the sovereignty or free man movement. What's your take on that? If a big name like you kind of started showing that there's a corporation, all capital letters, that is made when you're born, they have a birth certificate, the driver's license, this SIN number. So now we're all essentially born with this slave name, and when you answer to it in the courts, you're now subject to their acts and statutes versus natural law. Do you think that the free man movement has some potential?
I think that it makes sense for every single person in Canada to read up on natural law and read up on how they can claim sovereign status, and they can use it in the course to help defend themselves. And if we had a big enough group of people that was educated on that, it could stick. Because what happens is when you have only a few people that know what they're talking about, they literally just try to make you look crazy, and they'll use corruption in the courts to ostracize you, to demonize you, and to ultimately make you lose. But if you had a huge group of people and a huge group of citizens that were supporting that kind of movement, especially even in other countries at the same time, a coordinated effort, there's not much they could do. They'd have to take it seriously, and they'd have to abide by the laws as they are written. And there are some really powerful sovereign laws on the books. It's just that 99.9% of people, including myself, aren't very well versed on them.
Yeah, I've been looking into it for years, and I get intimidated by the police. I don't want to start writing off letters to the judges and to the Bank of Canada and all this. It sounds very technical, but at the same time, if more people did it, I'd feel more comfortable instead of being the gopher popping up and getting banged back down. What's your take about geoengineering? Like locally, we have BC Hydro that has weather modification contracts to modify the snowpack levels. Tony, did you hear about this? Yeah, so they didn't notify any of us. It's no consent from the people. Do you think there should be a referendum, a vote, or at least public awareness about this instead of them slandering chemtrail theorists as crazy?
Obviously, any type of first of all, if geoengineering didn't exist, there wouldn't be a word called geoengineering, which literally means modifying the weather. So if they couldn't do it, there wouldn't be a word for it. Number one. Number two, obviously there should be transparency in anything that affects the community, anything that affects the people in the community. But what we see with our government, especially with COVID, is a lack of transparency. Hell, they stopped all voting. They stopped Parliament. They stopped every type of democratic process we had, and basically turned our country into a third world style dictatorship, and it doesn't seem like they have any notion to let it up anytime soon.
Yeah, with flat Earth, I try not to bring it up anymore because, first of all, the people that don't believe it say, what does it matter, flat or ball? It doesn't really matter, but at the same time, there's a growing number of flat earthers that have a lot of proof that there's no curvature. You can see the sea is level. You can zoom in on the boats that apparently go over the horizon. I'm curious if you looked into flat Earth, and what's your take on that?
I have not looked into that. To me, it's a completely irrelevant topic to what's happening right now. Right now, we need to focus on our rights and freedoms, which are being taken from us, and we have to focus on how our countries are being restructured so the government is in a perpetual state of power and the people are in a perpetual state of servitude. That's all I care about.
Do you think that they could be using, for instance, their NASA science to scare us with asteroids, solar flares, all this stuff this is apparently experts about, and now they can use the so-called solar flares or asteroids to create EMF pulses that a lot of the agents are suggesting could take down the power grid? Are you thinking that maybe regardless of your opinion about flat Earth, do you trust NASA or some of these science organizations that are claiming to save us from asteroids, for instance?
Well, I don't know anything about how they said we're going to get killed by asteroids, but solar flares are a real thing. The last time we had a big solar flare hit us was something like the 1951, and it destroyed a lot of the power grid. So that could happen any day, anytime. That has nothing to do with NASA. Do I believe that any government agency will do anything they can to scare the people, to get submission out of them and compliance out of them? 100%. So why would NASA be any different? It's just another government agency. They'll tell you whatever they're told to tell you to make you scared and make you do what the government tells you to do.
Yep, pretty much. With the actor-based reality, Trudeau's eyebrows fell off at the G7 summit. So if he's got big fake eyebrows on, do you think he could be an actor using those eyebrows as a disguise?
No, I don't really think so. I think Trudeau is Trudeau. I don't think that our public officials have been replaced by actors. I do believe that they hire actors as disruptors like we saw today, somebody came here, started whistling, started talking, saying derogatory things to people. Those are the kind of people that I believe are paid actors. And the kind of people we see in media that are supposedly journalists, those are the kind of people that are paid actors. They're paid to just say what they're told to say. Even our government officials are basically paid actors. We have actual videos of our public health officials literally admitting on camera they don't even understand what's written in front of them. They'll just read it because they're told to. So yeah, I call them paid actors. But do I believe that there's like somebody that took over Justin Trudeau's role as prime minister and we have an actor playing Justin Trudeau and he's been cloned or replaced or something ridiculous like that? Absolutely not.
Yeah, no cloning center. I think that's a lot of disinformation, hogwash to cover for the actor-based reality. So it looks like Matthew McConaughey, the wife and children also look similar to Trudeau's. On the bigger scale, it looks quite a lot more obvious that Joe Biden is wearing prosthetics or masks, weird neck appearances.
He definitely looks like he's wearing makeup, because he's an old man and they're trying to make him look good for the camera. But I don't believe Joe Biden is wearing a mask like a Scooby-Doo movie and we're going to find out it's really Joe Pesci in there or something.
Yeah, that Joe Pesci actually looks like Scotty Kilmer, the famous YouTube car mechanic guy. But the Joe Biden looks like Pierce Brosnan, and the old Joe Biden, there's a clear difference between the two, looks like that Val Kilmer. Anyways, what do you think about Donald Trump? A lot of so-called truthers are supportive of Donald Trump. Do you think that guy has any is he legit?
What do you mean by legit? And what do you mean by they're supporting Donald Trump? Supporting him for what?
Well, for instance, like, they'll say this QAnon conspiracy is suggesting that Donald Trump is investigating and going to round up the child abusers.
Well, I believe that there is an actual ongoing audit of the Arizona results, and if they're talking about that, I can understand that. All the rest of the stuff I've been hearing about lockdowns, about children being rescued in tunnels, and that's the reason for the lockdowns. If that was the reason for the lockdowns, I don't know why they would need to use lockdowns to rescue children from tunnels. Why couldn't they just go in the tunnels and rescue the children? But no one seems to be able to answer that question. So I just think that's more speculation and more distraction of the reality of what's going on. And the reality of what's going on is our governments are using COVID and closing our businesses to rob us financially, control us financially, suppress us financially, and then they're trying to take away our rights and freedoms that are given to us by God and replace them with government-granted privileges, all in a way in an attempt to simply institute a control grid on society so they can have perpetual, basically, ownership of us. They want us to be a slave class. They don't want us to be free. And that's what we need to focus on. All these other things you're talking about, actors in the White House, flat earth, those are all complete distractions that are completely irrelevant to the discussion and completely irrelevant to the future of Canada, in my opinion. So anyways, guys, I got to get running because we're going to be off to Edmonton now, but it was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chris.
Cheers, brother.
Yeah, cheers, bro.